there used to be a thing on the chessboard sometimes where a person would lose, and the person who lost will start telling the person who won, here's a better way that you could have beat me. Now, of course, the answer to this is, don't tell me how to beat you. I beat you the way I beat you. If you lose, just get up and take a walk. I don't necessarily need you popping your gums on your way out of the door. Enter one Joe Donnelly. And Joe Donnelly is not alone in this effect. McCaskill was saying, popping her gums off at Ocasio-Cortez. The catch is, this corporate Democrat, Joe Donnelly here for Indiana, lost his seat. And losing his bid, you have the people of Indiana, the good people of Indiana, saying, no, we don't want you. He has advice now. He has advice. The guy that lost has advice. Oh, joy. Just so we're clear, Joe Donnelly, 62% of the time, voted with Donald Trump. So that gives you the type of Democrat that Joe Donnelly is. Him and McCaskill, like I said, lost their seat, the centrist Democrats. But they have advice. They know what their public wants, even though they didn't know enough of what that public wants to keep their seats. Listen to this. He's now campaigning against Medicare for all. Don't be a commercial. God damn it.
They're all going in the same direction.
I hate the fact that there's always commercials on these things. Nevertheless, Joe Donnelly essentially is making the point that when you push for Medicare for all, you lose people that are in the Midwest, essentially people in his area. And that you must talk incrementalism because the people won't understand anything beyond incrementalism.
I want to ask you about your party, about the Democratic Party. You lost in Indiana in November. McCaskill, we just talked about, lost in Missouri. Heidi Heitkamp lost in North Dakota. The Democratic Party was already receding to the coasts, even more so now. So can the Democratic Party, your party, be viable without appealing to the interior of the country where you live and where you represent?
Boy, I don't know how you do that. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I got more votes in this midterm than any Democrat in Indiana in modern history.
It clearly wasn't enough, buddy. It clearly wasn't enough. Let's keep going.
But it wasn't quite enough because the president came 3 times in about the last week, 6 times in about the last month and a half, and said, this is about him. And he said, if you don't vote, basically, you're betraying me. And we have not made enough of a connection. I work like a dog nonstop to make that connection, but that the people of my state understand that culturally, we want to make sure you succeed, that we're going to fight to make sure that, for instance, on student loans, we'll keep the interest rate at the same rate as a housing loan. But when you talk Medicare for all, like I heard on the panel earlier, you start losing the people in my state. When we start talking about, hey, we're going to work together with the insurance companies to lower premiums, that's what connects.
Again, the guy that lost has advice for other Democrats. Don't push Medicare for all because the people in my state won't understand Medicare for all. The people in my state just want you to work with insurance companies to incrementally to lower rates, even though the rates aren't going down, even though the rates are continuing to go up. It's as if he believes that the people of his state won't necessarily understand free at the point of sale while paying a little bit more in taxes and getting essentially health care, getting rid of this exploited relationship between the health insurance companies and the individual. You don't need the health insurance companies in this mix. They are leeches within the healthcare process, and what they can do can be done and replicated by Medicare and expanded. But again, for the standpoint of people in the state, I strongly suspect they weren't made that argument. They were made the argument of the incrementalists, of choosing between a hard-nosed Republican and a guy who votes 62% with Donald Trump. Essentially a Republican and a Republican light. And the people chose just, hey, why don't we just get a real Republican if we're going to get somebody who's essentially mimicking the Republican thing? And mind you, this is after them saying that Donald Trump was a force of nature. Here's the reality of this, though. 70% of Americans now support Medicare for all. This is CNBC, it's not HuffPost or something like that. 70% of Americans now support Medicare for all. That includes a majority of Republicans. Put a finer point on it. When Donald Trump was running in the midterms, and Donald Trump, not him running, but he was pushing for the people of his party, and he comes out with a new policy. Now, mind you, he's pulling this out of his ass, but if you remember, during the last presidential election, Donald Trump said everybody's going to have big, beautiful health care. Now, again, that was a lie, but that was a lie with an eye towards what the public wanted. He was crowd surfing. Even among his base, he was crowd surfing with this idea of we need to do something better for health care. Donald Trump, during the campaign season, during the last campaign season, comes out and says he is going to tether the drug costs to essentially socialist nations. So the amount that drug costs, at least 50% of the drugs, like cancer treatments and those type of things, will get reduced. That the profit motives will be diminished. That they will essentially be price setting those drug costs for 50% of the drugs in the United States. That's mind-blowing that a Republican, let alone a Republican president, that's coming out saying this. But understand the reason he was coming out and saying that, whether it's real or imagined, there was a reality to it. He understood that the majority of the public is on board for Medicare for all. And Donald Trump, was trying to find a way to blunt any attack that was going to be on his fellow representatives or him going into 2020. The policy consideration that he was putting forth, even though there wasn't a reality from the standpoint of what he was going to actually implement, from the standpoint of him saying it, gets across the reality that the public is on board for Medicare for all. That's not just Democratic voters, that's also Republican voters. I want to make this clear because I want to drill a nail into this. This is not just the coast or people on the coast care about healthcare. The entirety of the country, the number one issue in this last election season was healthcare. This push that you can only do incrementalism. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. Beto ran as a flaming lefty in Texas. He didn't win, but they didn't even think he was going to get that close running in the way that he ran that race. Gillum also didn't win. Stacey Abrams also didn't win. Stacey Abrams, however, was cheated, again, running as a lefty in a deep red state. Gillum running as a lefty in a red state. These people did magnificently well in these areas where they shouldn't have done that well at all, at least going by the logic that you have to run a particular way and you have to pretend to be a Republican when you're running in these red states. I reject this notion that the people in those areas can't understand that healthcare insurance companies are profit-making enterprises and that they are unnecessary to a process, that you are driving up the cost of healthcare, either from the standpoint of drugs that we buy or from the standpoint of the services that we get from these doctors. We pay twice as much, if not more, than anywhere else in the world. And it's time to put a stop to that. And the idea that he's saying, oh, we need to help these insurance companies remain and work with them for nonsense. Get rid of them in this process and make sure that everyone has affordable, high-quality health care, which means if you were born in this country, congratulations. We've evolved to a level that makes sure that each and every person in this country have health care. Not because we're saying that you must do it by mandate, but we're actually ensuring that it's done. There's a difference in those things. You lost. Take a walk. Take a walk. You and Claire McCaskill can keep your advice. Take a walk. The public is on board for this. And it needs to be something that's a red line. So, I'm not going to keep this one long because I have another one that I want to do after this. Medicare for all should be a litmus test. I am sorry. That is a litmus test for me. That is a low bar litmus test, by the way. Meaning, before we even have considerations about other stuff, I don't care who's on the other side of the political space. If you are not on board for Medicare for all, you're not getting my vote. Nor should they get your vote. So, I'll leave it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. I'll be back momentarily. I have a few videos that I want to do today. Thanks all.